Don't hate, but video games should be easy. Easy to play, to beat, and most importantly, easy to understand. For most people, gaming is a leisure activity, a hobby. Let's disregard those who have more than 8 hours a day to spend mastering a single game. For everyone else, games are an escape, and we shouldn't feel too much stress while playing. So, easy is better. It is hard to categorize story games by difficulty with a few exceptions. Everyone knows games that are meant to be cozy and relaxing, and others that are meant to be punishing and challenging. Difficulty is subjective because everyone comes into a game from a different place. That is why so many games offer different settings for the challenge. But this can actually be a problem. If the progression between them isn't smooth, it will feel choppy as players step up to try a harder run. The jump from easy to normal might be okay, but if normal to hard is too steep, it will be frustrating and off-putting. It also assigns a subconscious value to the experience for people whether they like it or not. The God of War difficulty settings are a great example of this. Give me a story, give me a balanced experience, give me a challenge, give me God of War. In the first setting, the player may as well have picked a show to watch on Netflix. The difficulty is, there is no difficulty. The player is a passenger, doing the bare minimum to move between cutscenes. There is no risk and reward, no investment, no possibility of failure. How do you pick between the middle two then? And how different are they really? Finally, the name of the last and hardest mode is the same as the actual game title. We are supposed to think it is the true experience. A game with no difficulty options is focused. The developer's true intention and vision is clear. There is no status to achieve by suffering through a version of the game that is arbitrarily hard and not actually fun. When a single-player game is too hard to play, it distracts from everything else involved. A constant struggle requires so much concentration that the player can lose sight of important elements that bring the whole thing together. You start to lose appreciation for the visuals, the soundtrack, the voice work, and the story itself. The elephant in the room is Elden Ring. It was overwhelmingly popular and is one of the highest rated games of all time. It has a score of 96 on Metacritic, tied with other famous names like Half-Life 2, Resident Evil 4, and Skyrim. There is no choice for difficulty. Players are required to memorize mechanics and get in reps on bosses to practice how to beat encounters. How is it that such a heavily punishing game is rated just as highly as more relaxing stuff like Grand Theft Auto 4? The ruthless difficulty is so central to the game's identity that it positively impacts the player experience. It is an event to successfully complete such a tough game. Getting through it is a testament to players' skill and willingness to improve. You want to beat the game because it is a point of pride. When I say that games should be easy, I'm not devaluing or understating that traditionally hard games can be objectively incredible. There was an era of television shows, beginning with The Sopranos and including The Wire, Breaking Bad, and Game of Thrones, called prestige television. They featured high production value, complex plots, and mature content. Elden Ring stands out as a video game equivalent, an example of prestige gaming. It's a game for gamers, people who are more serious about the hobby and willing to commit the time to overcome the challenge. In games like this, dropping down a level of difficulty to get through is a Pyrrhic victory. You won, but also had to admit defeat in the process. You feel fine if you get through Halo on heroic, but good players beat legendary. There is a higher goal, an accomplishment beyond simply going through the story. Some of the things I have played through, I don't actually describe as having played. I say that I beat that game instead. It is a subconscious dividing line between games I feel are easy and ones that are just on a different level. I have played Pokemon and Oblivion. I beat Call of Duty 2 on Veteran Mode. I beat Geometry Wars Retro Evolved, earning the achievement to survive for 1 million points without dying. Are there any games that you have categorized like this for yourself? Let me know what they are in a comment down below. One of the most important things about easy games is that they leave room for the player's own creativity. Extreme difficulties have a tendency to box the player in, making it so their success depends on using an optimized or unbalanced strategy. It is perfectly fine if you want to struggle through Halo 2's Legendary mode while dual-wielding an SMG and plasma rifle, if that is how you want to play. You are going to suffer and die a lot for that choice. Or you could grab the plasma pistol and battle rifle and have an easier time. The best-selling game of 2023 was Hogwarts Legacy. It is a perfect modern example of gaming escapism. Before it came out, the last real games set in the wizarding world were the Deathly Hallows Part 2 and LEGO Harry Potter Years 5 through 7, both in 2011. People were ready for an updated adventure around the legendary castle. I was no exception. The best part of the game, and it is clear how much love and attention went into designing it, is the castle. So much of it feels alive, to the point where it feels like a character in its own right. The first few hours of the game, once I got through the introduction, were lost wandering around, exploring the common room, and taking any interesting looking pathway I came across in my travels. Beyond that point, things are honestly disappointing. The areas outside of Hogwarts itself are sparse. The story isn't particularly good. The cosmetics are okay, but not great. The potential is there, but it's not fulfilled. And that's just fine. There is a difficulty option, but you can change it whenever you'd like to suit how you want to play. The challenge is an afterthought. The game should be easy, because you are not playing it to top a leaderboard for how many NPCs you cursed. The point is to enjoy an upgrade to the Hogwarts experience you might have played in 2002 and have fun being a wizard. The game doesn't exist to push players to their limits. Nothing is truly difficult. Instead, the player gets to solve some puzzles, test out spell combinations on enemies and the environment, and explore a beloved setting in a familiar, established universe. If you were forced into a specific talent build just to get through the game, the experience would be degraded. It is crucial that the player be allowed to try out anything that sounds fun while they play. Otherwise, a core element of what does make the game fun would be lost. It wouldn't have a purpose. Some players are happy to simply play through, get a story, and get out. But if they want more, the player gets to decide how hard they want the game to be. For others, the answer is to ratchet up the difficulty by self-imposing a challenge for themselves. One way of doing this is with a speedrun. Even the most basic game becomes much harder if you are racing against similarly dedicated people. These players push the code of a game to its absolute limits in pursuit of speed. You can see player creativity on full display by watching Super Mario 64 played this way. Or you could invent a set of rules on the honor system to add a new layer of difficulty, like Pokemon players have done with the Nuzlocke. Some common restrictions for this type of playthrough include only catching the first wild Pokemon in an area. Fainting becomes equivalent to dying, and that Pokemon cannot be used anymore, and a whiteout is actually game over. Many people have played and loved the series for nearly 30 years, but the games have steadily gotten easier in recent generations. This method gives them new life for longtime players, adding challenge to a game that is otherwise simple and straightforward. Maybe the most famous way to creatively add difficulty to a game is the Iron Man mode from old-school RuneScape. Players must be self-sufficient. They are forbidden from trading, using the Grand Exchange, and most group activities. RuneScape was first released in 2001, but its players have continued to find new ways to keep the game interesting and fresh. It is hard to separate multiplayer games into ones that are hard and ones that are easy. It's partially based on preference and past experience. An experienced FPS player has a higher threshold for difficulty in a new game than someone totally new to shooters. But that makes for an obvious litmus test. Can someone new pick up a game in a reasonable amount of time? Let's talk about Rocket League. First, an easy multiplayer game should be easy to understand at a fundamental level. Someone totally new should not be confused by what they see the first time they try out a game. The concept here is incredibly basic. You are playing soccer, but hitting the ball with cars. You, me, your grandmother, and your 7-year-old cousin can all instantly identify what's happening. This is critical because it opens up opportunities. First, new players feel welcome. Things are simple and easy, so they are likely to find some success. The introduction is a gentle ramp, and they keep adding new capabilities to their toolbox as they play more. They are slowly exposed to better players and see how the game works at higher levels. In a competitive game, new viewers don't get lost. The scene has a real chance to convert casuals into dedicated grinders. The upper echelon feels attainable because new players are not being completely dominated. They can actually get invested and want to learn and play more. When a game is easy, there is no barrier for entry. Anyone can dive in if they are interested. Even though Rocket League is easy to start and understand, it is incredibly hard to actually master. But if the base game wasn't easy, this skill gap wouldn't exist. Brand new Rocket Leaguers spend most of their time driving forward with the ball cam off. Eventually, they get comfortable enough to leave it on. They get more practice with controlling their boost, learning how to jump and to dash. If they stick around long enough, they figure out how to take flight. Each stage is a breakthrough. Progressing through different elements of gameplay feels rewarding as players keep leveling up their skills. There's always someone better to try and emulate, and when someone is better than you, it is really obvious. When a game is easy, player skill is holistic. The limiting factor on player achievement is not mechanical. Instead, players are rewarded for the intangible elements of their gameplay. Map knowledge becomes valuable, and the intricacies of specific matchups are important. An in-depth knowledge of game systems is one of the only methods to manufacture advantages. Players who can communicate effectively and efficiently, and correctly prioritize helping out other players, are rewarded for their teamwork. Knowing when to crash on offense, when to rotate back on defense to cover your teammate, how to effectively challenge, all become crucial elements of gameplay. Making the correct decisions becomes at least as important as mechanical skill as players climb in rank. In this type of game, balance is much easier to achieve. The absence of complex systems makes it so that players can't abuse the gaps while the next patch is in the pipeline. An easy multiplayer game gives the players plenty of room for creative freedom as well. Dribbles, deeks, and fakes aren't an intuitive part of Rocket League gameplay. Most people want to go supersonic, but the ability to control the ball, to stop and change direction at will, opens up new possibilities to achieve the simple task of putting the ball into the goal. Games are like any other art. No two people experience a game the same way, even if they are sitting side by side playing couch co-op, and that applies to every layer of the experience. The amount of variety is what makes the hobby so appealing. There would be no base for hard games if all of them were difficult. Without the early, easy games as a stepping stone, games would gatekeep themselves. You have to learn the alphabet before you can master a language. The letters become words, become sentences, become paragraphs, become yapping on YouTube. Most every game needs to let the player ramp up in a similar way so new players don't get too discouraged. They need a gentle introduction to the maps, enemies, systems, and mechanics. There is a lot of competition for players' time out there. If a game isn't easy to pick up and understand, it is much more likely to lose players before they can learn to care. The perception of a game influences how players feel about the difficulty, both the expectation and reality. You don't expect Mario to be overly challenging. The atmosphere gives it away as a game you are primarily supposed to enjoy. It is bright, cartoony, and silly. All of the sound effects have a layer of cheer, and the music is mostly upbeat and happy. Even the sinister set pieces in Mario games are charming. An extremely difficult and punishing fight with King Boo would be a dissonant design choice. He is obviously a bad guy, a spooky ghost with teeth and an evil laugh, but he is also a little adorable. Between Boo and the Elden Beast, which enemy do you expect to struggle against more? Easy games are just better. The story and setting have room to shine, and the developers' ideas translate much cleaner. The experience is what the developers actually intended and reflects the original vision. More than anything, the players have creative freedom. They leave room for players to explore, to grow, and to test the limits on their own. With rare exceptions, it is better to let the players decide how much they want to struggle to get through a game.